plan in place in the minds of many for Trump's reelection, and this argument is going to be what they run on.
Well, it's really, Jackie, some astounding news that on the night before the vote was supposed to be certified in the United States Congress, a sitting president of the United States was still working feverishly with his aides to try to figure out how to overturn those election results. It's yet another one of those moments that are both shocking and yet quite predictable from Donald J. Trump. Tell us about it.
Yeah, and all taking place right a block away from the White House, which was astounding to us. But I think one of the most interesting facts that we found throughout this investigation this week, which was prompted after Liz Cheney mentioned the Willard War Room in her remarks when Steve Bannon was held in contempt by Congress, was that this operation that took place a full week on that week of leading up to January 6th was actually paid for through campaign funds. They've spent $55,000 that was initially put up front by Bernard Kerik, who was reimbursed by the Trump campaign, which sort of renders Steve Bannon's claims of executive privilege, at least in my not lawyerly opinion, moot. But look, Rudy Giuliani spaghetti on the wall tactics that started actually November 5th, right after the election. Bernard Kerik came to visit him. They stayed for a month at the Mandarin Oriental before then moving to the Willard to then have a more professionalized operation. But after that sort of disintegrated, John Eastman came into the picture, and this group coalesced around Eastman's constitutional guidance. And that's where Eastman was then telling them that they thought they should implement this plan to convince the state legislatures to do a 10-day delay by pausing once the Electoral College certification was happening, sending it back to the states, having that 10-day delay, and then them investigating the alleged fraud, which there's been no such evidence of, sending it back with Trump's electors. Regardless of whether or not this plan worked, there was conversations amongst all of these players that they would at least sow a sufficient amount of doubt in Joe Biden's presidency.
And Susan Page, this showing not just Trump sort of in his cult-like mentality, getting his followers to show up at the Capitol and storm it or however you want to put it, but that there was a mechanism being put in place, a mechanism to really drum up a belief in this notion.
And it underscores how much we still don't know about events surrounding and leading up to January 6th. This story and others makes it clear that there wasn't a rally that got out of hand.
Right.
And some people enthused by the moment went and waged that insurrection on the Capitol. There was an extended amount of planning to affect the outcome of this election, or at least to sow doubts about it. And what if they had convinced Mike Pence that he could send it back to the states for 10 days?
It appears he was doing his best. You know, I mean, Joe, there are so many different reports of Mike Pence sort of going through the motions. Is that fair to say, of asking, like, how this was possible? Even, my God, the reports that he was calling a former vice president. I mean, there was no other option, but he still followed orders.
Well, he exhausted all possibilities,
yes,
but he called that former vice president, and that made all the difference in the world, because a former vice president who he had known and looked up to his entire life said, no, there's nothing you can do. You have but one option, and that one option is to go ahead and certify the votes. You don't have the power. You do not have the power to do this. And Jonathan Lemire, after Mike Pence made that fateful decision to actually follow the Constitution of the United States of America instead of a burned-out game show host, it set the Willard War Room ablaze. They were angry, trying to figure out what they could do, and therein lies the importance of Steve Bannon, and more importantly, legally, the reason why Steve Bannon is ignoring a subpoena and defying a congressional subpoena, because he's at the center, it looks like he's at the center of this riot. He predicts the riot. He plans the riot, and he's planning the riot with Rudy Giuliani and everybody else around him, too. Let's just get this straight. A little bit of silence here. What's he planning to do? What's Donald Trump planning to do? What's Rudy Giuliani planning to do? They're planning to overthrow the United States government by overturning a peaceful election for the first time in the history of the United States of America. That's what Steve Bannon and Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani were in the middle